There's been far too much Carson Beck slander over the course of the last really few weeks. I want to say last few months. We're going to address it right now, though. So if you're a Miami fan, make sure you are subscribed. If you're just a college football junkie, also make sure you're subscribed. College football year-round right here on this channel, right here on this show, The Hard Count. So make sure you're dialed in. So Carson Beck has a phenomenal 2023. All SEC. It's his first year as the guy, over 70% completion percentage. They play for an SEC title in his first year. Georgia ultimately is just too dinged up to get it done. But you look at 2024 and you're like, all right, Carson Beck at one point in time was the far and away favorite to be the number one pick and potentially Heisman Trophy winner. And then the 2024 season happens and everyone's like, must not be that good. Guy fell off. Well, we did a returning quarterback rankings here on this show, The Hard Count. Go check out that video if you haven't already. And spoiler alert, we have Carson Beck not just in the top 10, we have him in the top 5. And we got some pushback on that saying, they're falling for it again. They're falling for the Beck propaganda. I saw one comment that said, did Carson Beck just play a game that only people in the media got to see? And that's why they're making these kind of rankings. I hear where you're coming from. I hear the thought because 2024 was not all that great. But the danger of Twitter is it's not real life, and oftentimes it doesn't provide any context. It's just everyone trying to get a joke off. So I'm here for the jokes too because we all like to laugh, but when you look at Carson Beck, what's more likely? That he just forgot how to play quarterback from 2023 to 2024, or maybe Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey, two NFL weapons, both weren't on his roster anymore, and his team that couldn't really effectively run the football, 102nd in America in rush yards per game, made it a little bit more of a difficult task for him to repeat the kind of year he had in 2023 and 2024. Because y'all, to be real, like the receiver room, it wasn't just like they weren't as good as those NFL guys that left. That's one thing. They legitimately led America in drops. That's bad. It's not just, no, it wasn't as good as it was the year before. It's like, no, that's legitimately bad. And Carson Beck definitely has his fair share of blame in this whole equation. I mean, he's 12 interceptions across the season. That's not great. But when you can't run the football and your receivers aren't great at hanging on to the football in general when you throw it to them, yeah, I would press a little bit too. And I think one of the things that gets overlooked as we talk about Carson Beck and having success at Miami and why I still believe a lot in him here going forward is last year, in addition to what he had to do on the field, the pressure that was applied to him having success, correlating to Georgia having success offensively and as a team, he put a lot of pressure on himself, it sounds like, going into the year. Like, everyone says the right things. They put on the blinders, and, I'm just trying to win games, just trying to do this, trying to do that. Carson Beck, allegedly, according to him, his goal was to win the Heisman Trophy, win a national championship. And those are good things to want, but if you're to the point where you're saying those things out loud, I believe that was on a broadcast during one of his games. I think he said that to Kirk Herbstreit maybe during their meetings during the week, if I remember correctly. That's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure. And so I think when you look at his time at Georgia, did he leave a lot to be desired in 2024? Absolutely. But I think the change of scenery, just for this guy's psyche in general, getting out of a spot where you are the only show in town, in Athens, Georgia, you are the guy, not just in Athens, Georgia, but nationally, like everyone's expecting everything of you, and then going to a place in Miami where still a bright spotlight, but ultimately we've seen the different jokes about who does and doesn't go to games at Miami. Like, there's a lot to do in Miami. You can kind of be a little bit more low profile and have a little less attention, and I think that might be exactly what Carson Beck needs. I think him having a chance to just sort of breathe a little bit, get into a different system, get around different people, that's not knocking Georgia. It's just at some point in time, sometimes things run their course. And I think that was kind of how it worked for Carson Beck. I think him having a chance to reset just from a psychological perspective is going to benefit him. And if this sounds a little bit too philosophical, there is no position, I believe, in sports in general that's more cerebral than playing quarterback, much less in a high-profile spot like the SEC or now in the ACC for Carson Beck at Miami. So when we talk about his projection in 2024, or 2025 rather, from 2024, you look at what Georgia was offensively, and in 2023, they averaged 9.5 yards per pass with Carson Beck at quarterback. The following season, they were in the 7 yards a pass range. That sounds like a small difference, but like to go from 10 yards to 7 yards, give or take, that's a pretty big difference from an explosivity standpoint. And Carson Beck, from what I can gather, you just watch him throw the football, his skill set is built to push the ball downfield. His skill set is built to spray it around the yard. And whether it was a scheme thing or a personnel thing, Georgia did not do that, / they were not able to do that in 2024. So now you go to a place in Miami under Shannon Dawson where that offense, they were top 5 in America last year when it came to yards per attempt. Yeah, Cam Ward obviously played a massive part in that with him having a pretty quick trigger wanting to push the ball deep, but a lot of that is given Miami's offensive scheme. So when I look at Carson Beck in the context of what he's going to be asked to do next year, my point I'm trying to make is I think it's a lot more within his wheelhouse of what he's going to excel at. And the SEC, obviously, with the defenses he had to play against, not knocking the ACC, but I don't think it'll be a more difficult task in general. I think he's going to have a pretty good transition. I think Miami, if they want to have success, to me, it won't be about Carson Beck. It'll be about the defense. It'll be about having the weapons to maximize Carson Beck. But Carson Beck, I'm just telling y'all, he's a good quarterback. I've made it very clear. I think he's a top 10 quarterback, top 5 quarterback even going into next season. He's got the skins on the wall. He's an all-SEC player from the year before when he had serviceable weaponry. I love this fit. I love where he's going to be at Miami, and I think that ultimately the Canes here in 2025 will be right back in that mix to potentially win the ACC, get over the hump, be in the college football playoff, and grabbing a guy like Carson Beck is a massive reason as to why I believe that's the case. So let me know your thoughts about this. You buying the Carson Beck stock, or you think 2024 is a lot more what we'll see from him in 2025? Remains to be seen. Cato on the 1s and 2s, myself, JD PicKell. We will keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time.